Hey H&K fans, James here with another Target of Opportunity video. Today I want to talk about three subjects. The first, the H&K P2000 series, the second, training, and the third, upgrades, and specifically custom gunsmithing from Rick at Lazy Wolf Guns. Now, I've done a very thorough and detailed video review on the P2000 series on my YouTube channel. I will link it below in the subject description area. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you go watch it. Even if you are an owner of a P2000 series, I'm confident you're going to learn something new and come away with a greater appreciation for the pistol. But why do another video on the P2000 series? Well, as I mentioned in that video, I believe that the P2000 is the most underrated pistol in H&K's current lineup. It just does not get the credit it deserves, not for any fault on its own, but more from just this weird kind of timing that the pistol fell in, kind of being overshadowed by the popularity of the USP series that preceded it, and then very rapidly after its own release being supplanted by the P30 and then later the VP9 series. But from a everyday carry standpoint, concealed carry role, which is what I'm using it for, I believe it to be right-sized for that role. And I'll talk about that here in a minute. As you can see, I've got several models, within my collection, from my cutaway, standard and SKs, the blue guns, and we got the European spec and the US spec models as well. And as we'll discuss here, I also have a VP9SK that I use as an everyday carry weapon. So what do I mean by right-sized? Well, that's very dependent on you, the individual. There are some really big dudes out there with some very manly hands that a smaller size pistol just isn't going to work. I know several guys that I've trained with that conceal carry Mark 23s. They're big enough to get away with that. But for me, as much as I would like to, conceal carry my VP9 match, it's just not going to happen, okay? For several reasons. First of all, I'm not some oversized big dude. Second, the environmental conditions on where you live. If you live somewhere up the north and you're wearing, long sleeve flannel shirts and coats and stuff, you can dress around a larger gun for concealment. I live in the southeast. We're not putting jackets on until the late fall. Most of the year, we don't have heavy type garments. I also have the benefit through what I do that I rarely put pants on. And my buddy Kevin at DoWorkDoLife.com keeps me well supplied in awesome H&K t-shirts. So if you see me out in town, most often it's going to be in shorts and a t-shirt. And that means that I have to have a weapon that's a little bit more compact in order to carry it effectively. The next part of that, inherently by nature, we as humans are lazy. We make comfort-based decisions. If your pistol is too big and too heavy and too cumbersome, well, we're just not going to carry it every day like we should. And what's the point of needing a gun and not having one on your body? That's where the right sizing comes in. And I've always believed that the P2000 itself and the SK, the first in the subcompact lines, are right size for those type roles, at least for me. The P2000 is based off of a product improvement of the original USP series, and specifically, it is sized dimensionally off of the USP compact. So the USP compact already being a compact pistol, that's where they started with the P2000. So it is sized as a compact style pistol. And for me, I can get my full hand around it, all three fingers on the grip. It's just got a good overall balanced size. But from the subcompact level, with a magazine in there, I can get my bottom finger on it. But it's just a little bit shorter there on the front, a little bit right sized for me, but still got a great capacity in ammunition, as well as being reliable and dependable like we would expect from H&K. So the other cool thing about the P2000 series is you've got different variants you can come with. You've got traditional double action, single action. You've got what H&K released as combat defensive action, In Germany, here in the US, it's known as LEM, or law enforcement modification. You can dive deeper into that into the P2000 series video review I mentioned, or I've got a separate video just on LEM that explains it. But in short and sweet explanation, it is H&K's enhanced double action only, where the racking of the slide, either to manually cycle the first round or through the 8-step cycle of operation during firing, it pre-cocks the hammer strut and spring. The hammer stays forward and it allows you a long initial take up of the trigger like you would have in a double action gun, but without the heavy resistance, because that hammer strut and spring is already pre-cocked. So you get initial long take up, but a light trigger pull, and then the slide will cycle, it'll pre-cock again, and every following shot gives you the ability to have a consistent light and trigger pull. So that gives you the feel and performance of a striker fired trigger system, but with a hammer fired gun. Very popular. H&K's obviously reintroduced striker fired systems with their VP9s. We have those options as well. So this gets into my next discussion onto training, and with all those different things, there is an obvious answer on why LEM has been so popular for H&K. I do lots of LEM conversions on USPs and HK45s for that very reason, from their original DASA configurations. The LEM variants on the P2000 series and P30s that follow them are incredibly popular on the commercial market, and usually sell for more on the resale market than their DASA variants. And obviously there's a reason why the VP9 has been such a massive success for H&K and other striker fired pistols, and the resurgence of 1911 style guns like staccatos with short straight back triggers with very light pulls. Those guns are all very easy to shoot. They make us better shooters without us having to put a whole lot of effort in. That takes me back to DASA. DASA, as we all know as shooters, is just inherently more difficult to master. That long, heavy trigger pull and that initial pull, and then the transition to the shorter, lighter pulls that follow, that takes a lot of skill to get really proficient at. And that's why those guns have fallen out of favor. But there are guys like me that still appreciate a DASA one, and my P2000SK that I have is a DASA model. And though I like shooting all the different variants of H&Ks, the ones I have to spend the most amount of effort in training on to continue to deliver the performance I want are my DASA guns. And that's where we get into the upgrade part. So I commonly get people who want to send their weapons in for upgrade. A popular option are the Gray Gun short reset kits. It's a drop-in part, can improve your performance on your H&K pistol. But it might surprise you to know that with all the H&Ks I have, I don't have any aftermarket upgrades in any of my guns. Now I've got H&K factory upgrades. I've got USPs where I put match trigger kits in, and I've got the spec parts to take this US model VP9 match and create it into the more performance-oriented German model. But I've never put any aftermarket stuff in my guns. I've never sent any of my guns off and had some custom gunsmithing done to them, partly because I'm stubborn. And I've always believed that I need to focus on the training first. And part of that probably goes back to my Marine Corps background. Some of you guys maybe I'll be able to identify. I had lots of different opportunities within my career, got to work with different handguns that I was issued in different assignments, but it was always whatever the armory gave me. I didn't have the ability to take that firearm home and do all these modifications when I went to qualify, or when I went to utilize that in performance of my duties. My ability to shoot it well was all based off of how much effort I put into becoming a better shooter with that given gun. And so when I'm out attending a course or teaching a course myself, I like to be able to swap into any different model of my handguns and be able to use those in the training course to prove to my students who may have all kinds of tricked out guns that if you put the effort in, it doesn't really matter what gun I put in my hands, I'm going to be able to deliver. But then I come to my P2000SK DASA model. Love this gun, have carried it before, but because it is DASA, it is just more challenging for me to master than it would be if I had an LEM version or a striker fired gun. So somebody might be asking, well, James, why don't you just get rid of that and get yourself the LEM version and then you'll have no problem? Well, again, I'm stubborn. I put a lot of effort into working the DASA model into what I want it to be, but I've hit a plateau. And as much effort as I have the, I guess, ability to put into it, I've now realized that, hey, I need some extra help. And that takes me to my last point, talking about Rick at Lazy Wolf Guns. A few months ago, Rick and I were on the phone. We were just catching up, talking about our personal lives, our professional lives, what we've got going on with our businesses. And I got to talking about my P2000SK and the challenges I was having with just wanting a little bit more performance out of my DASA gun. And Rick was telling me about the different projects that he had been working on, specifically with his own enhancements and specifically a new skeletonized trigger that he's developed. And he said, you know what, James, send me your pistol. I'm going to go through it. I'm going to work my magic. I'll send it back to you. I think you're going to be really happy with it. And I got to tell you guys, I'm so happy that I did for several reasons. But I got this thing back last Friday and I took it straight to the range. The first thing I did on there was slap on my set of Talon grips and my range bag, and I was off and running. Talon grips, you guys might be familiar with them. I don't use them on a lot of guns, but the P2000 series, the standard side grip texture on these is not, it's pretty slick. The back and the front strap aren't that bad, but it's a little slick. So having a little bit more friction on here, especially from a concealed carry gun, warmer environments, sweating on it, that kind of thing, I want to have that texture. I took it straight to the range, loaded it up, spent the first magazine just working through, those double action shots, decocking every time, getting used to the double action pull. And then the second mag, I just worked through a slow and steady cadence of fire, resetting my sights and resetting my trigger, starting on the double action pull, and then working the reset. So my local range and its telephone booth sized lane and the lighting, all that isn't the ideal location to showcase the performance capability of it. But I did shoot one short video showcasing what I just described there. So I'll insert that here in the video. Okay, so from that video, I went on to, the next mag of doing a more rapid cadence of reset sights, reset trigger, and then I moved on to some reload drills from concealment. But even after about 150 rounds, I was incredibly pleased with the work that Rick had done. The action on the weapon is completely smoothed out, and I have complete confidence in my abilities now with this pistol to deliver the results that I'm looking for in those stressful type situations that I would want to be able to engage with this pistol. So it's already in my rotation. Let's talk about what he was able to do and how those performance updates, translated onto, the paper. The first thing you'll see here when you look at the pistol, obviously we've already discussed the Talon grips. The only other noticeable difference, from the outside is in this lightweight skeletonized hammer. He's designed it to look very much like a 1911, commander style hammer. I think that's very cool. I've got some 1911 background. I really like that. It is non-obtrusive, meaning it doesn't get in the way of my decocking. It's got just enough purchase here on the top to manually cock it back if I need to. And it doesn't present a snag hazard when I'm drawing it from concealment. Really nice feature. Now, Rick offers different coating options for your hammer or for the other internal components when he does his work. But again, I just wanted to keep the original design look. I like the subtle of the P2000 design, so I just had them nitride that as well as the internal components. I know there's other guys who like to go crazy with their modifications. They do all kinds of custom stippling and porting, and then they, you know, Cerakote the gun to look like a stormtrooper, and I'm just not that way. I like the way that he was able to do this, again, very subtly. Internally, though, that's where all the other changes happen. And what I like about that are two things. First, other than this hammer, which was not a requirement, this is a new addition that I asked him to put in there, he has done his modifications off all of the original factory components. So you don't have to worry about some off-the-shelf aftermarket part being dropped in your gun, and then, you know, who designed that? Where's the quality control on that? You know, what's the quality of the materials? Is this Chinese pot metal, you know, that he just put into my gun? That's a good feature. And what that does, because of the due diligence that Rick has put into the years of fine-tuning and figuring out how to do what he does, and then all of the checks that he does along the way of quality control, is that I don't have to worry about the reliability and safety standards that we know and trust H&K for have been degraded because of what his custom work has been done. And we don't have to spend a whole lot of time searching around the internet or our memory bank and our meme collection to know there's plenty of aftermarket parts that have been designed that have had significant failures like that. Hell, there's even some companies out there, and I won't name who they are, but they certainly don't start with the letters H and K, that have rushed guns out to the market that have failed to live up to those reliability and safety standards. Don't have that issue here. So what has Rick done? Well, he calls this his HK HF MRAP. Big acronym, but what that stands for is Heckler and Koch Hammer Fired Master Reduced Reset Action Package. What does that mean? Well, you know, that's a closely guarded secret. I'm not going to take it apart and point out all the different areas of where these improvements have been made. But basically what Rick has done is he has done a significant amount, meaning time invested into each one of these, in modifying and tuning the internal components in order to improve the action, the overall action of the weapon, and make that trigger action lighter, smoother, and more consistent all the way through. So kind of hard to explain, but you can definitely tell when you feel it. And what do I mean by that? Well, Rick, which I love, he's super passionate about H&K firearms. He's put the time and effort into learning. He's a student of the gun, of taking it apart, looking at all the internal components, and then where are those engagement points, those surfaces between the trigger and the trigger bar and the sear actuator latch and the hammer and the control lever and the firing pin block, all those internal components, disconnector. And he has looked at those engagement surfaces and found, where can I tune this? Where can I modify that to make that break a little cleaner, to make that reset a little shorter, more responsive, to eliminate some weight out of this trigger pull in this area, to remove grittiness or stacking, and all that has been done here. So again, it's not something that I can just point to and show you here on the gun. It's something that you have to understand, but I'll do the best I can on video from the trigger pull. So let's talk about DASA. This is where I wanted the improvement to be made the most. I've got my initial, just taking the slack out of the trigger, but once I get on there for the DA pull, it is one smooth trigger pull all the way through. There's no stacking, there's no grittiness, there's weight to it, which is what I wanted, but it's not nearly the weight that it was, from the factory. And the smoothness allows me to get on the trigger as I'm presenting the weapon out, start to take the slack out of it, and then just simply roll straight through. Then you get to cycling, and now your reset is incredibly short and incredibly responsive. It pushes back out with force. You don't have to move your finger very far. And what that means is, again, as demonstrated in the video, with a good solid grip, I am able to reset my sights and reset my trigger incredibly fast. My split times are incredibly fast, which means I can deliver my rounds more accurately and more responsively. And that's what I want to do in a concealed carry type situation. I'm not taking one shot. I'm putting as many rounds that are necessary in order to incapacitate that threat. And I need to do that as fast and accurately as possible. So that's your master reduced reset action package from Rick on hammer fired guns. And this is available for both your DASA gun as well as your LEM variant P2000s and P30s. And this new skeletonized hammer is a option that works on both the P2000 and P30 series. He's got them both for the DASA guns and for the LEM ones. So let's summarize the whole video for you. First, let's go back to P2000. As I said, I think it is a criminally underrated pistol from H&K. If you are already an owner, operator of these weapons, well, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. But hopefully, if you are new to H&K and you're looking for something that is right size for a self-defense, carry type thing, that you'll take a look at it. And I'll give you a little secret here. H&K is about to discontinue this pistol. Again, not for any fault on the P2000 series. These are excellent weapons. It's just simply what firearms companies do. It's now over 20 years on in its life cycle. As they continue to release newer and newer models, that means that the older ones are going to fall away. And so you're still going to be able to find all of the different models, variants, caliber options on the resale market. But if you're wanting to get a new one, well, you should do that sooner rather than later. Now, let's talk about summary on training. In my opinion, there is far too little investment on training and far too much investment on these aftermarket or custom type things. Again, I think in our general nature, we're just lazy and we're looking for the easy button. And the firearms industry is all too ready to take advantage of that. All you got to do is go to SHOT Show and walk around and see how willing the industry is ready for you to spend your money on this whiz-bang solution that's going to make you an incredible shooter, instead of the time and effort that's involved in actually doing dry fire and going and attending some training. So what I would recommend, and I'm not trying to patronize you guys, I hope you can all take a hard look at yourselves and ask yourselves that question as well. I would rather see you guys invest in a quality training course or a series of quality training courses and get yourself to become a great shooter regardless of what firearm you put in your hand, than investing in some aftermarket or custom solution. But if you're like me and you've done all those things and you're still at a point where you've hit a plateau, and for me it's with my DASA guns, and I know that in order to get to that next level and really find the performance capability that I want to have out of this gun, well, I'm going to have to reach for some extra help. And that takes me to my last portion of this video, and that's talking about Rick and what he does at Lazy Wolf. I'm a huge proponent of this type of capability. There's far too many of guys like Rick out there in the industry that can do what he does, and we should definitely take advantage of those opportunities when we have them. Rick is incredibly dedicated. He's been running Lazy Wolf now for over 10 years. Before that, being with Gray Guns, he's got experience beyond that, and beyond being an incredibly passionate H&K enthusiast, he is incredibly OCD, which I love, and has really dedicated the time, the weekends, the late nights in order to make these things happen. So, in order to wrap all of this up, I would also give a public service announcement that this is not a paid endorsement. This video that I'm producing here was not something that there's some compensation agreement on. The work that he did on my pistol, I paid for. I didn't try and get some kind of bro hookup for him to do this. I believe that the best way that we can support the great guys and girls that are out there in the industry doing awesome work like this is to actually support them. I think there needs to be more of that in the industry as well. With that said, the work that he did, it is not inexpensive. This is not the $100 parts upgrade project. And it took time. I didn't get this back in 2 weeks. But I will tell you that what you get is worth the time. What you get is worth the money. And if you don't believe me, well, reach out to Rick, give him a call. He will drop what he's doing and take the time to explain everything he does and what you're going to be able to get out of his performance packages if you give him a call. But as always, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you are in need of H&K service and support or you need training opportunities, give me a shout. That's what I'm here for. Thanks, guys.